Today, I'm going to be working on this mount to hold the clutch so that I could take the spider off. So what I got to do is I've already welded on this nut to the end of the all thread so I can thread it through and be able to clamp down the clutch. And the next thing I need to do is I need to get these holes drilled out so these bolts can sit here, because right now the clutch sits too high on that bracket and these little nubs don't hold the clutch in place. So I got to build something that'll hold the clutch from spinning while it's clamped down, and hopefully I'll be able to take that spider off. That Loctite's pretty tight. I'll have to put some heat to it to try to get it off. Hopefully we can get it off. I have all the tools. The only thing I need to do is modify this. So let's get started on drilling these holes out and drilling them out big enough to where these bolts will fit, and then I should be able to adjust the height for what I need to be able to hold the clutch in place to take it apart. So I've got the bolts in place that are going to hold the clutch, but the problem I'm having right now is with the clutch sitting on here, the bolt heads are too big and they don't grab the clutch to hold it in place. I know I'm using this all thread as kind of as a clamp, but I also want those two bolts to be up there to hold the clutch from spinning, so it just gives me a little extra. So what I'm going to do is I need to take those bolt heads, I need to round them down, and I just need to keep rounding them down to where they fit in there nice and tight, so when I go to try to spin that spider off, I'm not going to bend the bolts or anything like that, and they're in there tight. So let's take the bolts off, round them off, put them back in, and see if we can start to heat up that spider and pull it off with the tools I have. I've got the wrench that you have to order special for these to take them off, and hopefully we can get this apart fairly easy, get it cleaned up, and then get it put back together and put it back on the green sled. Alright, so now I've got the bolts set up. I've got them drilled down a little bit, both sides. When I put the clutch on there, it goes into the slots really nice and sits down there tightly. So once we put the all thread through and we clamp it down, it should hold that clutch in place while we try to spin that spider off. I still got to make a little bit more adjustments so it sits nice and flush on there. I think we're good to go. We'll start heating up the spider, see if we can't break loose that Loctite. Hopefully we can get it hot enough, get it taken apart, clean it up, and maybe put it back on the green sled, take the old one off, and use the old one as like a emergency backup. Well, that was what I was afraid of. My vise is not going to be able to handle me pulling on that unless I can get it heated up enough. I didn't hear any popping. Usually with Loctite, when you have the stuff you have to heat up, you can hear it popping and cracking. I don't know if I didn't get it hot enough yet to hear the popping and cracking, and maybe figure out a way to keep the vise from turning. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, because not sure how I'm going to keep it from turning, but we're going to have to figure some of these things out and see if we can get this spider off. Well, back to the drawing board on that. As you can see, I just snapped those little posts I put in. I just snapped every single one of them. Those bolts didn't hold up to nothing. Can't get the spider hot enough to want to pop loose. I don't know. An impact would probably be really nice, but with this tool, I don't have the option of putting any impact on it. Back to the drawing board. I don't know what I'm going to do to get this off. I don't know. I'm going to have to figure some things out before I get to work on this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take the other clutch apart on the green machine, take the other clutch off, bring it in here and see if I can't take it apart. I have the part so I can set it the way it's supposed to be set. Alright, so I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to get that spider off that primary clutch. The way I did it with the bolts just broke off, didn't give me any support, didn't help at all. So I came up with this idea. I believe it's an 1.5 inch square tubing, and then I've got this steel rod that I've had lying around. I still have to grind things down a little bit, but I think this might work. It gets me up, it spaces me up high enough to where it will sit flat on those nubs, on these steel rods here on both sides. And hopefully it's strong enough. I'm going to weld them into place, try to weld them on the inside, try to weld them on the outside, and see if it's strong enough to hold in place with the all thread going through and being bolted down. Maybe it's strong enough it'll actually hold and be able to break loose this spider that's on this clutch. I don't know how well it's going to work. I don't even know if it's going to work. So I'm going to give it a shot. That way I'm unable to find a tool that actually is for this clutch. There's tons of tools out there for clutches, primary clutches, but nothing for this type of clutch. I did find one on Speedworks, but it's out of stock. Don't know when they're going to get it back in stock. This is kind of my only option. I'm going to get to welding this. We'll get them ground down so that the clutch sits on here flat, and maybe we can get that spider off yet. Now that I've finished welding up my extension adapters for this, I guess the next thing to do is we're gonna have to strap down the vise. That's why I have this chain here. I'm gonna take and strap down the vise, try to keep it from turning. We're gonna add heat to the clutch and see if we can't get this spider turned off. Hopefully it's not gonna take too much heat, but I put a lot of heat into it the last time and I couldn't get it to move. But I also didn't have these extensions, so let's get to heating the clutch up and see if we can get it to budge. Just put the clutch on to see how well it fits, and it actually surprisingly sits on there pretty tight. Now comes the boring part of me standing here for the next 15-20 minutes heating this thing up to see if I can get it to that Loctite to pop loose. When I did the nut, I was heating up the nut. I actually heard the Loctite popping, so hopefully I can get the Loctite to pop on this and then be able to spin it off. Well, that was not fun, but I did get it off. I did get it spun off. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's actually like broken up belt. So when I bought it, I noticed that the cover for the belt had been like destroyed, ate up. I think they had a belt explosion, and when that happened, it got inside of here. And there's two little spacers. Well, there's a lot of belt that's built up in between the two. So what I think I got to do now is I'm going to have to start looking for parts and pieces and fully rebuild this clutch and make it brand new. I've already got it apart, so now I just need to find the shims and rollers and all the stuff I need to put it back together as a brand new one. Having it apart this far and just cleaning it out and putting it back together is probably a waste. So now I think the next step is, well, and then on top of that, I'm gonna have to fix my bench because I yanking on it like I did, I kind of separated the bench from the wood on top. So we'll have to repair that, figure out how to make that stronger so when we put it back together, it doesn't break more. So now what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to take apart some of this, get it cleaned up a little bit, maybe start tearing apart the spider. There's little rollers and stuff that are in here on the side, spacers, things like that I can clean up and take apart. I also have that other clutch on the green machine that I might take apart, and there's a broken screw on it and I think it's set up wrong, so I might take it apart, and since I have this holder for the clutch, maybe I'll put it on that, screw it down, make it tight, and see if I can take it apart, clean it up, maybe set it up the way it's supposed to. Well, I got the other clutch off, as you can see here, but unfortunately it doesn't fit on this bracket here. But I don't have to take the back side of the clutch apart. I don't need to take the bolts. I don't really need to take these out. because all I'm really doing is I just need to compress it, the clutch enough. I just need to compress it enough to be able to take those screws out, then let everything loose so that I can try. I've got a broken screw right here that I would like to try to get out, but at the same time, these screws that are here should probably be in that slot there, I believe. I'll have to look it up online again to make sure that's what it's supposed to be, is in like the number 4 spot, for it to be tensioned right. It's an aftermarket kit that you put on this secondary clutch, which is supposed to help with torque and things like that. I need to figure out, well, first off, I need to see if I can break those screws loose without breaking the screws. Then I need to see if I can loosen it up enough to where I can take this cap here off and be able to get that screw out, because I'd really like to get that screw out and go buy a couple more screws and put new ones in it. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. We'll give it a try and see what happens. It's apart now, but I ended up breaking another one of these screws. This thread here I think might be a little messed up, so I might have to tap it when we get back. I've got to go find some screws that match this, that are maybe Torx head, maybe a little bit stronger, and able to clean this up, put it back together, put some nicer bolts on it or screws on it, and hopefully it'll be set the way it's supposed to. Still need to look online, see what it's supposed to be set at, if it's supposed to be set at 1, 3, 2, I believe they said 4. So I need to rotate it to the 4th notch, put the screws in, tighten them down, and be done. I will probably be putting some Loctite on these because these were extremely loose when I took them out. I have some new screws that I went and picked up. I just finished tapping a bunch of these holes just to make sure the threads were all nice and clean, because of course, before I took everything apart, I snapped 2 of the heads off. So it says to put blue Loctite on these. I'm gonna go in and get Dylan, have him help me real quick so that we can get this kind of done right and correctly, and hopefully be done for the night. Yeah, see, I got some blue Loctite right here. We're gonna take these, blue Loctite them, set them up at the number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 spot, and hopefully that'll make a change on how this clutch works. Maybe it'll make it better, maybe it'll make it worse. We'll find out. All right, that's the end of this clutch. The holes that I started with, I punched a hole here and then I punched 2 holes here. That was giving me a starting point on where it was at the beginning when I took it apart. Apparently when they put this system on, they felt that it needed to go further past where it should have. I started it off at 0, twisted it. Bikeman's website says 4 to 5 without any tension on it. I started there, twisted it just enough to get to my first hole. Then I had Dylan out here helping me so we could twist it all the way, get it set up with 4. I don't know exactly what this is going to do to the sled. It's supposed to change RPMs and things like that. I don't know, we'll have to see. But I've got it set up the way it should be now, at least the way the instructions say it should be done. I watched a video to see exactly how to do it too, and it's pretty close to what they do, or what they did. It's not supposed to have a crazy lot of torque on it. It's just supposed to have enough torque to tighten that spring up a little more. This clutch is ready. I can put this clutch back on. I have to find parts for this stuff, for the spider gear, or the spider and the primary clutch. I have to find parts and pieces for that. I don't have them right now. I'm gonna have to order them. So with that being said, I think this is where we're gonna end the video. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what you thought of this video. If this is something you like watching, if not, we should have to come up with some other stuff. Dylan's got some stuff going with the cross cart. We've got that. We still have some snow, so we might get a couple more snowmobile videos in. Don't know. Time to get the bikes out, start working on them. I've got a clutch to put in mine. Dylan, I think, needs to rebuild his front forks, so we've got that coming up. Spring's coming quick, so we've got to start getting this stuff done. And snowmobile season's almost over with for us. It's getting warmer and warmer, but we're gonna try to get out a couple more times, get some video of that. So be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.